Separation anxiety and anxiety in general is extremely common. Pretty much every single dog is going to experience it at one point in their lives. So it's not something that's unique to one dog or another. It's not a genetic problem or the type of dog or breed or anything like that. So it's a very common issue. And it's something that you might not have experienced yet with COVID keeping everybody at home and working from home, but it's extremely common for dogs to get. So in today's talk, we're going to review kind of some of the basics, what separation anxiety is, how it can be prevented, which is probably the most important part, and if your dog already has separation anxiety, what you can do in terms of, I'll give you some ideas for exercises and whatnot. Anxiety in general, but especially anxiety when it comes to you leaving, which is the separation part, is the fear of the unknown, to put it in a nutshell. Dogs become anxious when they're in a situation where they feel uncomfortable, and anxiety is one of those fears where they just don't understand what's happening, or they're afraid of what's going on. So I'm going to explain this more from a dog's point of view first, because I think it's pretty clear in terms of the human experience, how humans experience separation anxiety. But from a dog's point of view, they just don't understand what's going on. So when your family, which to a dog, a family is like their pack or a family. It's like any other family, just your dog is a little bit furry. When you leave, when the pack gets separated, it's normal for them to experience a bit of separation anxiety. But what's going through their head is they don't understand. They don't understand why they're being left behind, for example. So you get up in the morning, you take them for a walk or whatever that case may be, you have some fun with them, and then you go to work or you go visit family or go shopping. Your dog doesn't really understand why they're being left behind, which is what causes the separation anxiety. They're used to being around you, obviously, quite a bit, especially if they're puppies. They're used to being around people and around their family pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when you go to leave them, they just don't understand. So it's that fear of what's going on, why am I being left behind, why am I alone, what's going to happen to me, when are my family going to come back, that kind of thing. There's a lot of different causes for it. Most of them stem from the family, but again, it's a natural type reaction for a dog to experience that type of anxiety. So they just don't understand. We can't communicate to them why that's happening. When dogs live with each other, the separation anxiety levels are much less likely, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. So it's that fear of the unknown, feeling of nervousness, the unsure kind of feeling that they have. The second part of it is that people, when they leave their dog, say goodbye to them, which is a human behavior. So if I left my house and there was somebody that I was leaving, I'd say, okay, see you later, love you, whatever, and then leave. It's polite for a person to say goodbye. But when people leave, they make a big deal out of it. They give their dog a cuddle, they say goodbye to them, they get them excited because they're giving their dog affection, and then they leave. You're leaving a dog in a state of mind, usually that's excited. So if you give them affection by talking to them and by saying goodbye to them, as soon as you leave, you're also leaving them excited, and now you're combining it with this unsure fear of the unknown. So that's how it comes on. That's how it develops. In terms of the symptoms are all over the place depending on the dog. Some dogs whine, some dogs bark, some dogs shake. You can literally see them shaking. And these are all coping mechanisms. They need a release, a way to relieve their anxiety. And by barking, they're trying to call attention to themselves. The whining is just another form of it. But either way, a dog who has any type of anxiety, but especially separation anxiety, is in a state of stress. It's a fairly mild form of stress depending on the symptoms, but I've seen dogs go absolutely bonkers. They'll tear up the house, they'll rip up furniture, they'll tear down like whatever they have available to them, and that's more of a state of panic. Separation anxiety left unchecked can turn into a more panicked state of mind, where it starts off as anxious and you add some excitement through affection from the people, and it turns into this panic, this state of like, oh my God, they've abandoned me, I'm never going to see them again, that kind of thing. It's really important that as the people in that dog's family, we understand our role and how it impacts our dogs. That's a little bit about kind of what separation anxiety is from your dog's point of view, why dogs kind of experience it, and it's definitely something that's negative. It's not a good thing at all. So it's really important to put some things into place that are preventative measures. And obviously, if your dog's already experiencing that type of separation anxiety, to put some things into place to address it. The other thing that is a trigger for separation anxiety, believe it or not, is how you greet your dog when you get home. Let's say you've left them for the day, you've gone shopping, you've gone to work, or whatever the case may be. You come home. What's the first thing that you want to do? Well, you greet your dog. They're excited. You're excited. You give them a big cuddle. You give them a big play. It's a big, huge adrenaline dump and a lot of excitement, a lot of affection. And what happens is they begin to anticipate that behavior. So dogs are pattern machines. They love recognizing certain patterns. And once they recognize a pattern, they will start to anticipate what comes in the sequence of that pattern. So I get left at home, I experience separation anxiety, I get nervous, I get anxious, whatever the case may be, and then my human comes back. It's very exciting. They give me lots of affection. And so they're anticipating it. They're anticipating that the sound of the keys in the door, the sound of your car driving up your driveway, all these things kind of heighten and make separation anxiety worse, because they're also not just experiencing the stress combined with the excitement, but they're also anticipating this payoff of, oh, I can't wait for them to come home. I can't wait for them to say my name and to give me a cuddle and all that kind of stuff. So people have a big influence on how a dog's separation anxiety gets triggered and the causes of it. Let's talk about prevention, because that is always the best approach. Whenever a dog experiences separation anxiety, it's usually pretty difficult to then undo it, depending on when you catch it. So if you start to notice that your dog is whining, or they're pacing, they're shaking a little bit, maybe they're barking in disagreement because they know you're getting ready to leave and you're not going to take them with you, or they notice that you're getting ready to leave and they think that they're going for a walk, because that's what normally happens. You get your shoes on, you put your coat on, whatever the case may be. Your dog doesn't necessarily understand that that's a different pattern than the one that they're used to when you take them for a walk. So again, they get excited, they start whining, they start barking, they rush to the door, whatever the case may be. And if as a human you express negative emotions, so you get frustrated with them, you get angry with them, you become impatient with them because you have to leave for work and you don't have time to deal with this and this is a nuisance to you, that then makes the problem worse. It adds fuel to the fire, because your dogs, again, they don't understand. I always encourage people to view the situation from their dog's perspective, not just from their own perspective, because that's much easier to understand. So see it from their point of view. So if you're getting frustrated with them, if you're getting angry with them, or even if you feel guilty, like a lot of people just feel guilty. They feel bad. They're like, oh, yeah, you're going to be stuck at home while I'm out, at work or shopping or going to see my friends, and I feel bad for leaving you at home. Your dogs pick up on that. So that actually adds to their separation anxiety. The fact that, because again, they don't understand. Like, why is mom, dad, whomever, why do they feel guilty? Why are they sad? And it's this stress that they are experiencing because they don't understand, like, what's happening. Like, she's just getting dressed to go outside. Why is that a bad thing? Why is she feeling guilty? So all these human emotions your dog picks up on, but they misread them. They misunderstand them. Like, dogs don't understand what it is that you're doing. They don't understand the difference between you taking them for a walk and you leaving the house or your condo to go to work. They just understand that you're leaving, and they're used to and want to go with you, which is completely natural. But the reality is we can't take our dogs everywhere. During COVID, this type of issue is just underlying. It's underneath the surface because we're all stuck at home. It's very difficult for us to leave our dogs to, let's say, go to work or to go shopping. Normally you go shopping, but now you order delivery. Before you used to go to a restaurant, now you order deliver. Before you take your kids to school, now they're schooled at home. All this stuff is great for your dogs. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, your dogs love having you around, but they don't get to experience what it's like to be on their own. And once a dog understands that nothing bad is going to happen to them, they quickly adjust. Most dogs, once you leave, they're just going to go to sleep. It's a nice, quiet, relaxing time for them. Some dogs do have related issues when it comes to sounds triggering them. So if your dog is the type of dog that will bark at the door if they hear somebody in the hallway, or if they see somebody walking by the front window, the dogs that sit in the window and stare outside and become like obsessive compulsive about anybody or anything that crosses the property. If you notice that kind of behavior in your dog, more than likely it'll make separation anxiety a lot worse. So it's quite complicated. It's not very easy to isolate what is the trigger, what is causing this type of thing. As humans, what we see are symptoms, and I think that's important to understand. The symptoms are not the problem. The symptoms are just an indication of a problem. And two dogs who live with different families can have the exact same separation anxiety, so they have the same problem, but their symptoms can be very different. So that's really important to understand, that regardless of what your dog's symptoms are, if they experience this high level of stress, this anxiety when you leave them, that's separation anxiety. And it comes from, like I said, it's a normal thing because dogs are used to doing everything together. Let's talk about prevention, because prevention is the best way to work with a dog. It's much, much, much easier than trying to fix it once it's already there. Okay, it's going to be a lot easier. So it's difficult for somebody like me or to explain the value to people of prevention because it requires an investment of time up front. Somebody might say, well, why should I practice leaving my dog at home because it's COVID? Right. I don't need to practice that. It just seems unnecessary. Like when I go to leave, that's when I'll address it. That's going to cause a lot of issues. That's going to cause a lot of difficulties. Because if you try to address separation anxiety or any other issue when it's actually happening, you're really going to struggle. You're really going to have a really difficult time. And again, you're going to be putting yourself in a situation where you're going to become frustrated. You're going to become impatient. You're going to get, angry or embarrassed or whatever the case may be, because that is the worst time to try and address an issue with a dog. Prevention, very easy to do. You can fit it into your schedule, no problem. And then when you go to leave, your dog is going to be much, much better off. Okay. So how do you prevent separation anxiety? Well, it's not rocket science. There's a lot of easy things that you can do. The first and most important is how you behave. Okay, so I'm going to be pointing my finger at the people, including myself, because I'm a person too. I would love to be a dog in another life, and hopefully, if reincarnation exists, I will be a dog. Because then I'll get lots of cuddles and love and be able to run really fast and the rest of it. That's the place that you got to start. So understanding, what is my routine when I go to leave? Whether it is you use a crate or you don't use a crate or all that kind of stuff, you need to understand your own situation and what your routine is for leaving. And then understand how you're influencing your dog. Okay, so if you're giving them a big cuddle, if you're saying, I love you, I can't wait to see you when I get home, I'm going to give you a big tummy rub and, all this stuff, and I'm going to miss you every single second, and lots of sucky talk, like that's going to make things worse. As people, we have the ability to understand what influence that we have in the world. Understanding that that is going to be detrimental, that's actually going to cause separation anxiety, means that it's very easy to fix. When you're doing your practice, when you're doing your prevention exercises, you're going to be practicing leaving your dog, right? So you don't have anywhere to go. I always recommend setting aside a good chunk of time where you don't have anything else planned and you have plenty of time, so that it enables you to stay patient, which is absolutely critical, and to stay calm. When you're going to develop your routine, you're going to understand, okay, when I leave, I'm not going to make a big deal. I'm not going to make a fuss. I'm not going to give my dog a whole load of affection or get them excited. I'm just going to leave. It sounds cruel. It sounds mean, because as a person, you'd be like, well, if somebody just left without saying goodbye to me, I would feel upset. But understand it from your dog's point of view. The more even keeled, the more calm you are, they're not going to even notice that you left. And then they'll just be like, okay, it's nap time. No big deal. That's number one. The second thing you have to figure out when it comes to prevention is really understanding how your dog is going to, what environment your dog is going to be. One of the techniques or tools that I use, and it's totally optional, you can do it with or without, is crates. Crates are really beneficial for dogs because it is like their little den. It's their little comfort zone. And if you haven't done crate training, this is a good opportunity to experiment with it. You can easily do these types of exercises without a crate. However, using a crate is better because it gives them a place to go. It's a designated area where they have their bed. That's where they relax. That's where they sleep anyways. So when you go to leave, it's like, okay, I'm going to my crate. I'm going to my relaxation zone. So they understand it's time for them to relax. Understanding what tools you're going to use, understanding the people involved. You can't just take one person out of the household and practice this type of activity, because then it only works when that one person leaves, right? If you're the mom or the dad or whomever, your roommates, partners, and one person's practicing it, okay, fine, that'll work with that one person. But if somebody else leaves and they do all the things that you're not supposed to do and they get the dog excited, and it's not going to work. I always encourage people to participate as a household, as a family. How I define family is everybody that is in that household that lives with that dog. It's just that simple. That's your dog's family. The whole household ideally should practice together. But if you can't, then when you're going through the exercises and you get your dog to a really good point where you can leave them no problem, then you can bring in the rest of your family to do simulate the same kind of thing. So you're taking the day-to-day situations which create this separation anxiety, and you're recreating that scenario, and you're just practicing it, and you're breaking it down into very small, manageable chunks. The actual prevention in terms of the exercises, I talked, about some theory. Now I'll get into a little bit more detail. Okay, what you want to do is break it down to very, very small chunks. And the reason why I encourage people to do it in very small stages is because small stages are very accomplishable, right? Versus if you're just doing like everything in one step, you're basically left with a pass or a fail on that one thing. And then what happens is if you have difficulty because you're trying to do everything in one go, you get frustrated and you give up. Okay. And again, any type of negative emotions, such as frustration or anger or embarrassment or impatience or anything negative, when you're doing these types of exercises or when you're working with your dog in general, will cause problems. Your dog will pick up on it, and they won't understand why you're getting so frustrated with them, and then it's going to make the whole thing worse. It's going to be counterproductive. So you want to make sure that you are prepared to feel comfortable and to feel patient and to feel like it's going to be okay. What you're going to be looking for in these preventative measures, these preventative exercises, is a state of calmness. And if you are not calm, your dog won't be calm, right? So the idea is you leave your dog in a perfectly calm, perfectly relaxed state, and they will stay in that state. They'll stay perfectly relaxed. They'll stay perfectly calm if that's the way they're left. What you're going to do is either use a crate or not use a crate, but I'll start with the crate because it's easier. It's easier. It's not necessary, but it's easier to do it with a crate. So the first stages is getting your dog comfortable with the crate. And if your dog has a negative relationship with the crate, that's going to be your first set of exercises. You're going to be like, okay, how do I get my dog nice and calm and comfortable with their crate? The easiest thing to do is to introduce it to them gradually, where you put your bed, your bed won't fit in a dog crate. The easiest thing to do is put their bed into their crate and to put some of your clothes in there or whatever after you've worn them, maybe you've gone to the gym or something like that, something that has a nice scent. Dogs are scent driven, so they use their nose primarily to perceive the world around them. So having your scent in there, having their scent in there is going to be good. If you're still having difficulty, put the leash on them and walk them into the crate. So it's difficult for me to demonstrate that with my hands, but just like imagine here's the crate here. My visual guides are terrible, but you just walk them on leash into the crate, and then you lead them in and they will naturally go in. So you're walking them in and you're just leaving the door open. The only thing you're trying to accomplish in that particular stage is getting them in there and having them nice and calm. That's it. So they're not trying to get out of the crate. They're not trying to claw at the door or whatever. The door is wide open. You just want them to go in there and chill out. Right? So you're setting the stage, and it's just one small step to take you further. And you'll know when you're successful when you can ask your dog to go to the crate. So I just say go lie down or whatever the case may be. They go to their crate, they lie down, and they're perfectly chilled. They're perfectly happy. They sleep in there. It's like an area for them that's safe and comfortable. And this is the type of environment that will help you to prevent them from becoming anxious. Like think about you in your bed, right? Like when you get in, you're nice and warm, you're cozy, like it's very comfortable. It's what you associate with relaxation and calmness and sleep and all that kind of stuff. So when your dog goes into their crate, that's what they're going to feel, right? So it's going to be almost like a trigger for them to take a nap, if you will. Okay. So the next step is to give them some positive reinforcement. So not excited reinforcement. So a lot of people think that when you go to give positive reinforcement, it's like, oh, good boy, and you are a good girl, and you give them like a big cuddle, and you give them like lots of love and affection, and it's very exciting, and your voice is like really animated. That is positive reinforcement for sure, and it's fine. Whatever. However, it's excited positive reinforcement. And what we're trying to accomplish is calm. Calmness isn't that exciting to watch, right? So if you want to give your dog some calm affection, you just don't say anything to them. And when you're petting them, you're just giving them a nice, gentle cuddle. Like it doesn't have to be overt and, like a big Hollywood production of I'm giving you affection and positive reinforcement. Okay. So just think of your voice like gasoline thrown onto a fire, especially if you're dealing with a puppy. Okay. Puppies they get excited at the drop of a hat. It takes very little to get them excited, but it takes a lot to calm them down. Okay. So if you're going to give them affection, just mild, calm, soft affection, and you're set. After you get them comfortable with their crate and they're nice and chill, and you can leave the door open and walk away, and they're not going to like run out and the rest of it, that's when you can move on to the next stage of actually closing the crate. And you're looking for the same thing. And it doesn't sound like a big step to go from an open crate to a closed crate, but it is. Because you don't want your dog to get the feeling of being confined. You just want them to understand that there's no difference between the door being open or closed, and that either way, it's representation of a state of calmness. So when you go to leave, eventually, they go in their crate, you close the door. Now that's a new pattern where they recognize, okay, when I go to my crate and I get the door closed, it just means that I'm here to take a nap and to calm down. That's it. Okay. It can be used in many other ways. Like if you're eating, it also works really great. Same kind of technique. Once you get to that stage, you can start leaving the room. Okay. So when we're practicing addressing separation anxiety, we're not going to leave our house or our condo or apartment, whatever, right away. We're just going to leave the general vicinity. Okay. So they can still smell you. They can probably still hear you, whatever. But what I'll do is I'll put a dog in a crate, and then I'll go into my bedroom, which is not too far away. It's like 6 feet away. And then I'll try going into another room and closing the door. So for all intents and purposes, you're gone and you've left them alone. Again, if you're doing this with the whole family would do this. They would all go into a room, and you start with the door open, but eventually close the door. Okay, so they're getting used to you leaving them and remaining calm. So I know what you're thinking. I can already hear you through the internet, even though I can't see you. Well, what happens if my dog starts to whine or cry or bark or experience some of the symptoms when I leave the room? That's actually a good thing, because it gives you the opportunity to help them through it. When you're gone for real and they're experiencing this anxiety, you don't have a chance to calm them down. You don't even know if they're barking or whining or whatever, unless your neighbors tell you, or if you have a webcam on them or whatever. But for the most part, there's not much you can do about it. In this case, what you're going to do is calm them down. Now, you're not going to soothe them with your voice, because again, that's a human way to calm someone down, is to be like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm just going to pet you and everything's okay. What you're actually doing is the opposite. right? So you're giving them affection when they're in an anxious and stressed state, which is going to make it worse. Whenever you give a dog affection, the acid test is what state of mind is my dog in? And whatever state of mind your dog is in, you're encouraging that behavior. Okay. So we're not going to use affection. We're not going to use our voice. We're not going to tell them it's going to be okay, the rest of it. The best thing that you can do is to take them out on leash inside your house or condo and to walk them around. Why is that? Anxiety is a way for nature to prepare a human being or a dog for fight or flight. Okay. So they tense up. So one of the ways you can relieve anxiety is to exercise them. And so walking them inside is going to help them to calm down. It's going to help them to get past this whining state, right? So you don't have to discipline them or get angry with them. Again, those negative emotions are going to be really counterproductive. You just want to stay calm. And eventually what's going to happen is they will calm down and then you start the whole process again. Another preventative measure before you even do this exercise that I forgot to mention is to exercise the living crap out of them beforehand, right? So if you know you're going to leave for work at 9 o'clock or whatever time you leave in, make sure you wake up early enough that you can take them out for a good exercise so they don't have any pent up energy that they're looking to release. Okay. A tired dog is a calm dog. Okay. It's going to help them to release endorphins. They're going to feel very satisfied. They're going to feel fulfilled in a lot of ways. They'll probably have something to eat after their walk, and all that will help with separation anxiety. But if they do get anxious or nervous or start to experience some of the symptoms that they had before, while you're doing these exercises, simply just walk them inside. Just take them around until they stop experiencing that state of mind and they calm back down, and then you can put them back in the crate and start all over again. This process is very methodical. Like, it's not very exciting. Okay. When I do these exercises with people, they're not very impressed in terms of this is not exciting. Like, because it's done in small stages and the desired outcome is a calm dog, it's not very exciting. Like, you're not seeing a dog fetch or do something very exciting. So it takes a lot of patience and usually a lot of time, depending on how bad the separation anxiety is. If you do it preventatively, meaning you do these exercises before your dog experiences separation anxiety, it's going to be a lot quicker. It's going to be a lot easier. You're going to done. It's not going to, you could do it in an afternoon. Usually when I do it with a dog, it takes anywhere from 45 minutes maybe to a few hours. It just depends. Every dog is different. Okay. I have an extreme wealth of patience, and I've done this exercise so many times, and I understand the value in it that for me, I'm just okay, it's no problem. I don't care if it takes 3 hours. I don't care if it takes 45 minutes. The outcome is what I'm looking for. Back to the exercise. So once you get them to that point where they're nice and calm, you can leave them in the crate with the door closed, no problem. You've left the room and gone into a bedroom, closed the door, whatever. Now it's time to add the actual activity of leaving your home, whatever it might be. The reason why you want to leave that till later on is because it creates a lot of excitement in your dog, right? Anything to do with a door to the outside world is huge for a dog, right? So they hear the sound of your keys, they hear the door unlock, any of those little sounds gets them very excited because they're associated with going for a walk, okay, or going to see people or people coming to see you. That door, think of it like a portal to excitement, okay? So that you want to leave that final hurdle till you've built up some of these steps where you've left them in their crate or whatever the case may be, and you've gone to different rooms. That's why I do the different rooms, because they don't have the same association with your front door. Okay, so that's kind of like you're building this kind of buffer of your dog is getting used to you leaving, not being around, all that kind of stuff. And then you save the most difficult part to the last. Again, you don't want to say goodbye. You don't want to tell them like how much you love them, how much you're going to miss them, you know, what they're going to get when you get home, all that. Just leave. Okay. Trust me, I promise you, your dog will not be offended. They will not hate you when you get home. Okay. They're still going to be excited when you get home, but what are you going to do when you get home? You're going to ignore them for a little bit. You're not going to talk to them. And if you do give them some affection, it's calm affection. Okay. So when you leave, you're going to stand on the other side of the door and you're going to listen. Okay. And you're going to listen for any of the symptoms of them whining or barking or anything like that. If it's a mild level of anxiety that you're hearing through the door, just wait a while. You can wait that out and eventually it'll go away. This is not the most exciting exercise. This is why people don't do it. And this is why people call me and be like, my dog has separation anxiety. What do I do? Kind of thing. Okay. But it's important to do. So people have seen me outside in my hallway, in my building, listening at the door and reading a book. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just doing an exercise with my dog to help them with their separation anxiety. So I'm standing outside. So if you hear it escalating, so if you hear a whine and then you try to wait that out and that whine then turns to a bark and it's starting to escalate, that's when you would go back inside and you would calm them down. Okay, so calming them down is you're going to use a lot of different techniques, but you're not going to give them affection. Calming them down usually means putting the leash on them and just walking them around inside. Okay, just inside. It'll stop the barking. It'll stop the whining, because walking a dog, what it does is it gives them the ability to get unstuck. So think of them in separation anxiety mode is like being mentally stuck. Like they're in the state of mind and they can't move on from it. So what walking is going to do is just allow their brain to actually move beyond the state of anxiety, the state of nervousness or whatever they're experiencing, and it'll bring them back down, especially if you're the one who's being calm, right? You're not talking to them. You're not, getting angry with them, not yelling at them, none of that. So taking a dog for a walk indoors sounds very strange, but it's a very effective technique to calm a dog down that's anxious or nervous, okay? When you're doing these types of exercises, wherever you start to have trouble, you go back to the previous step where you had success, and that's where you start, okay? So if you had success with them in the crate with the door closed and you in a different room, that's the last place that you had success. That's where you go back to if you're having trouble with the next step. And you continue this process until you can stay outside your front door. And I've done this with a book for 20 minutes. If you can make it to 20 minutes and you can't hear anything, they're not anxious, they're not nervous, they haven't barked, they haven't whined, nothing, you're probably good to go. Then it's just a matter of practicing that activity. Once you get to that point, because it's not like an on-off switch where it's like, okay, I had success with this exercise. They don't have separation anxiety anymore. I'm good to go. No, that's not the case. It just means on that particular day, you were very successful in accomplishing your goal, which is great. But you want to use that success to then build a new pattern for your dog. So they will start to, in their mind, say, okay, I go to my crate the door closes, I've had my walk, I've had my, breakfast, I've had my morning cuddles, I've gone and seen some friends at the dog park, all that stuff that they enjoy doing. They've done all that. Now it's time for you to go to work or to take the kids to school or whatever the case may be. So they're going to know, okay, I'm going into my crate. It's time for me to take a nap. That's what they'll know. And when you come home and they know that they're going to get a cuddle, but they're going to get a calm cuddle. They're not going to get the excited, I missed you. Where have you been all my life? And then the dog gets super excited. They jump on you, and then they are like, okay, I really like this, so I'm craving it. So I can't wait till you get home. So you're just going to stay calm before. You're not going to say anything to them. The same thing when you come home, you're not going to say anything to them. It's very difficult to do, okay? Because as a dog lover myself, okay, I know how difficult it is. I want to cuddle my dogs more than anything the second I get through the door. And I want to tell them how much I love them. And I want to tell them how much I miss them and how wonderful they are. And I just want to smoosh their face, But as a person, I have to understand what I want isn't necessarily what's best for my dog. So what I'll do when I get home, let's say I've gone to work, been at work all day. I get home, they've been sleeping all day. Okay? So they're at a very high level of energy because they've slept all day, and you're at a very low level of energy because you've just worked all day. So you're very tired and they're very excited, right? This is why you don't want to get them even more excited. So this is my advice is as soon as you get home, don't say hello to them. Don't give them a cuddle. Grab the leash, put it straight on, open the crate, leash on, outside for a walk. Because once they're out for a walk, you take them to a nice off-leash park, they can go bananas. Right? They can explode with all their pent-up energy that they've had from sleeping all day. You can get them excited. You can use their name. You can throw a ball for them. They can see their other friends. They can go bananas. And that's the best thing for them. But if you're doing it when you first walk in the door and that's when they experience the excitement, then that's what they're going to anticipate. Okay? Which, again, is a trigger for separation anxiety. Doing that over a span of, I would say probably 3 times a week when you're doing the prevention, if your dog already has separation anxiety and you're doing these exercises to mitigate that separation anxiety, you need to do this exercise more often. I'd say at least once a day until it's completely gone and it's gone for good. A crate is not necessary. Okay. So think about it this way. A crate is going to make it easier. But if you're up for the challenge and you don't mind taking more time for these types of exercises, then a crate isn't necessary. The issue with doing it without a crate is that your dog can go wherever they want. So if you're trying to leave the room, for example, right, and leave them on their own as part of the exercises, and they're not in a crate, they can just follow you, right? So that's what adds the level of difficulty. When a dog has more space, it actually makes them feel more anxious rather than their den. So a lot of people, and I say people, have a negative association with a crate. It's not the dogs, it's the people, because of the aesthetics and the fact that you're closing a door. So let me ask you this question, and I don't know if you're still on mic or not, but when you go to bed and you close your bedroom door, does it make you feel uncomfortable? No, right. Exactly. But when people put a dog in a crate and they close the door, it makes them feel uncomfortable, not the dog. So what I would suggest is, if you're not going to use a crate, to build out extra time. To do the exercise without a crate is probably, and I'm just guessing, but probably in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 times longer. It's because there's more room for your dog to roam. And usually what they do is they'll go to the door, they'll go to the window, or something else that creates more anxiety, right? So with a crate, you can separate them from the door, from that external stimulus that creates more anxiety. The process is the same. So one of the tricks that you can use that'll make it a little bit easier is when you go to leave them like a bone with some like peanut butter like inside it, so they have something to do, and then you just leave them. You don't say anything to them, you just leave them. And then you close your bedroom door, or you close your washroom door, or whatever it is while you're going through. So all the stages are the same. The only difference is that without a crate, it's more likely that they'll try to follow you around. So it makes the exercises more difficult to leave them alone in smaller steps, right? So let's say, for example, I go into my room and I close the door. They're probably going to come to the door because they're probably going to want to follow you. A dog that is anxious and has high levels of anxiety will usually latch on to the person in your family who also has the most anxiety. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's the case. So it does. And do you yourself experience anxiety? So worry, what is worrying? Worrying is you are unsure or you have a fear of what might happen. That's what worrying is. Anxiety is the fear of the unknown. They're very similar things. So nervousness, anxiety, fear, they're all like in the same family of negative states of mind. So if you're that type of person, that's why I said towards the beginning, it's really important that the first step is like looking at the person, the people first, and saying like, am I the one who's anxious? Am I nervous? Am I uncomfortable? Do I feel guilty? Because those things are easily, I shouldn't say that. They're not easily addressed, but they're easier to address. So you can say to your partner, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling nervous. I'm worried about XYZ. You can vocalize your emotions so that the people that you're with that can help you then just like, okay, let's do some breathing exercises. You know, nothing's going to happen to our dog if we leave them alone. One of the videos that I did years ago, and it's terrible, so I apologize for anyone who watches them. They're horrific. But it's with I think, 15-year-old dog who had severe separation anxiety. And the only reason why I knew is because it was my neighbor's dog and it would bark and cry all day long right at the door. So it wasn't in a crate. And he had a similar negative experience with a crate. So it took me a while to do the crate training, but then towards the end of the video, I actually show without it. Even if you're not going to use a crate for these exercises, if you want, you can use a crate for the exercise, and then once you're done the exercise, you don't have to use it again, kind of thing. Like a crate is like a tool, like anything else. When you're doing the exercises, all the things, so you'd want to put them into a bed, which is going to create this sense of relaxation, right? Calmness. It's something that they know is going to be very comfortable for them. So even though they're not in a crate, you're still going to put them into their bed, and then you're going to leave them alone. You can give them a bone to chew on or something like that to distract them while you leave. They won't even realize that you left. The only thing you're looking for is for them to stay calm. It's much harder for them to become anxious if you leave them when they're calm. It's still possible, but it's much less likely. Understand that being self-aware is going to be key to your success. So like I can hear it in your voice that you felt bad about what happened to your dog with the crate. So you have a negative association with the crate. Am I correct? Yeah. Okay. So that's something that would be up to you to decide whether you could overcome your negative association with a crate. So think of a crate, it's an inanimate object. It's not malicious, it's not out to get you. It's like a dog bowl, right? Like it's just a piece of plastic or a piece of metal or whatever. Like if you can get over your negative association with the crate and understand that it's just a tool, it's like a little den. That's how dogs perceive crates, but it's optional. You don't have to do it with a crate. It's just easier because your dog won't try to follow you and stuff. The difficult part that people have that trainers and people like myself don't have is that their only experience is with their dog like going through these issues. So that's all they know. They don't know any different. So when people come to me with whatever problem, aggression, anxiety, nervousness, fear issues, in their minds, there's nothing that anybody can do to help. In my mind, or in Sandra's mind, because Sandra does this kind of work too, and she's fantastic at it, she knows that she can be successful because she's seen lots of dogs who are in a very similar state and have success. And when you can do it with a 15-year-old dog that has been experiencing separation anxiety pretty much their whole life and very severe separation anxiety. Like what I would say to you, I think it was Maria, is don't do it alone if you're anticipating that it's going to be difficult for you, right? So that's why people call myself and they call Sandra, because we're impartial third parties, right? So we can help to walk you through it and to give you the support and that like encouragement, like, oh, don't worry, it's okay. Let's just repeat this and we'll get there. If you're patient, it'll happen. That's why I said like budget a lot of time when you're going to do it for the first time. It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. Your dog will appreciate it too.
Yeah.